here we go. Alright. Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classic Legend Known Classics. This is episode number 3201, Doubleshot number 3095. I got two trades collecting stuff by Philip Kennedy Johnson. First up is the second last to collect stuff from his run for this book, Superman Action Comics, Volume 2, To Hell and Back. This collects material, basically collects the B and C stories from Action Comics 1057, 1059. I'll explain the reason for that. The Action Comics presents Doomsday Special and Night Terror's Action Comics, the two-ish miniseries, that one. So, the whole thing with Doomsday Special, this is written by Dan Walters. Basically, the thing with this special is, it's kind of in a way a backdoor pilot to an upcoming storyline in Superman. And Supergirl's here, along with Manhunter, which, this is kind of weird for Manhunter. This look he's having here, he's had this since 2011. So he's had this look now for, as of this year, for 14 years. Unlike, let's say, Batman and Superman, who were back to their pre-Flashpoint looks, not in the case of Martian Manhunter. Nope, I think the only slight change made to him is they got the symbol on his chest. But yeah, Manhunter is here, and basically this book leads into, it's basically kind of a Supergirl special. That's why I think it's called a Doomsday Special. All about Doomsdays. And I love this variant cover here by... Yeah. So, and then we have Doomsday just punching the wall. This page here is a nod to the original storyline from the 1990s, which, of course, is how Superman was first born. I think this next story here, I believe, is a backup story. Let me check here for this one. I think it's, excuse me. So, and then we focus on this other story here, where we have Bloodthane. Now, this guy here is not the one that focuses the story here is the nephew of the original one, who's from the 1980s. He actually made his first post-Flash appearance in one of the Lazarus Planet one-shots. If you're curious, which one you might ask? Well, the original one, the original Bloodthane, they actually do not have a real name for the guy. Yeah, he's just a character who Dan Jurgens created at one point. John Jones once posed as him. Then, of course, they later changed it where, in the current continuity, the guy actually had a real name. Quintus Arce, and he actually made his debut in Action Comics 1057, which was I think the story here was the finale for... Let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, it was actually in a story that's... it's actually in this trade here. His nephew, of course, made his debut in Lazarus Planet Once We Were Gods, which I believe this was a mini-series. No, it's a one-shot. Yeah. Lazarus Planet. The mini-event that was there because of editorial mandate. Yeah, basically Mark Waid had to put his mini-series Batman vs. Superman on hold for several months because of this series of one-shots. And It just debuts his new character. By the way, it's confirmed that the other one did. Well, we'll talk about that one. So, and then we have this two-parter known as Secret Identity, which focuses on King Kong, aka the Chinese Superman. And if you're really curious related to this guy here, like, is this issue here the first of that two-parter? Not necessarily. No. For some, now the part one is actually printed in 1058. Yes. He had 1058 and 1059, and then he had 3 one-shot stories. Super Does. I believe this is a Superboy story. Yeah, this is a Super story, which I think this was the finale for a miniseries. Yeah, it takes place after the Superman of Tomorrow miniseries, but the story continued over in Speed Force. And of course, you have Night Terrors, Stuff and Nightmares, Part 1 and Part 2. Which is just a backup feature for this one. Yes. Yeah, basically the whole thing of this one now, the Power Girl one, that was actually collected in, I believe, a Power Girl trade paperback. Yes, I think it was collected, I think it was in the first trade paperback, I think it was. Yes, so the Stuff of Nightmares is mostly focused on the other members of the Superman family. Mostly the Super Twins, not the original one. And then basically fighting Hank Henshaw. Yep. A.K.A. Cyborg Superman. Yeah. That was quite interesting what it was. The Panic in Paradise. That's one of the stories in here. That is a Bilbo story along with Super Twins. Bill Boski, great character. I like the fact he has his own story. Yes, an absolutely fantastic character. Which, you gotta thank Peter J. Tomasi for bringing him into the current continuity. Because he is an amazing character. Oh my gosh, he is so awesome. This is a quick two-parter. You could kind of think of this book as this two-parter here as sort of a... The best way to describe this two-parter, it's sort of a loose continuation of the New Superman title, but told in the pages of Action Comics. Also, basically, Batman in China does basically ask him, you let him call him Keen Nan. It's a key, like, he actually does explain, like, why the pronunciation is different in here. Okay, so, by the way, the guy who wrote this, now you're probably thinking, is it the original writer of the ongoing series? Yes. Gene L. Young. Yes. Now, he does explain why the pronunciation is different, because he's used to different pronunciation because he's Chinese, of course. He says, this is easier than the American tongue. Okay, perfectly fine. And then at one point, he argues with him, and of course, they briefly fight each other. Nice little story here. It is interesting, though, they put this Connor story in this trade paperback here. Oh, yeah, and also the fact that they have it where him and Miss Martian are a couple. Now, this is something I do criticize DC Comics for this. They put the story in the wrong trade paperback. Because this is set after the Superman of Tomorrow miniseries. And they put it here and not in the trade paperback. I'm kind of like, why? It makes no sense at all. But that's the Young Justice. Yeah, they made a couple. They briefly fight Doomsday, of course. There's a flashback here of when Superman died. But looks like the way these characters look, it's all from the 1990s. Now, who are the characters in this cover, in this panel here? Well, up in front, the woman with the mask on, I believe that's Elongated Man. We have Batman. We have Guy Gardner Warrior. We have Booster Gold. Blue Devil. That's the Ray. I don't think this is the one who's currently gay. I'm not sure. Aquaman, obviously. Dr. Fate. Robot Man, who's in the Grant Morrison garb. It's like he wasn't heavily featured in the 1980s, but they feature him here. Mr. Negative, of course. So I'm thinking, okay, who's the guy with Big Bird? That's Nightwing. Yep, that was Nightwing's second costume he had. Early 90s, switched out from disco jazz. And suddenly thinking, like, who's this girl in the corner there? That's the Huntress. So, oh yeah, and then this is something really weird. So apparently Connor remembers not only the 1990s, the 2000s, but also the New 52, because there is a nod here to the early New 52 Superboy. You know, the one who disappeared and then this one showed up? Yeah. Yeah, and then of course, basically, so then he just looks at his phone, his hands are bloodied, and it says Superboy's adventures continue in the pages of Superman and New Speed Force. Yep. So then we have the Bill. This is just a quick little fun story of the adopted children of Superman, just work with Belba, which is so awesome. And then for this next one, Heart Metropolis, is a John Kent story, which him is hanging out, which is basically having fun, hanging out with his boyfriend. I'm like, yeah. And then we have the Night Terror stuff, which is interesting. But that's pretty much this book in a nutshell. Book is pretty good. I enjoy it. Give it roughly a 9 out of 10. Before I continue with the next trade here, those of you probably thinking, okay, why is DC Comics splitting up Action Comics into more than one trade paperback? Because, look at, let's say, 1051 to 1056, for example. The previous issues. Here's the thing. Those 6 issues, were collected in, I kid you not, 4 trade paperbacks. Yes, there is Return Metallo, Superman Lois Doomsday Rising, Steelworks, and Power Girl Returns. The Power Girl Returns contained the backup feature from the feature of 1000 to 1053. Steelworks was 1054 to 1056. In the case of the Lois and Clark one, that was 1051 to 1057. You're like, really? Yes, really. As for the reason why DC is collecting this stuff in several trade paperbacks, look, let's say 1057, for example. This book here, like, this one issue is collected in 3 different trade paperbacks because it's 3 different short stories. Yeah, they've been doing this since 1051, where they've been collected in multiple trade paperbacks. Yeah. But in the case of the other one, it's basically a very short book. I'll discuss this some more time here, but it's like, I mostly discussed basically these issues, but not all of them per se. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly what was the purpose of having Action Comics be an anthology title. Yeah, I don't really know. Could it be because, DC wanted to do extra sales of this book? Because this book is basically $4.99 a month. Excuse me. It could be a variety of reasons per se. Excuse me. But, basically, it will take one more trade paperback to finish up the other issues. Yeah, but I'll still have to get one era trade paperback in order to get past this era, and that being Neo 4 Zod. Okay, so next up we have Green Lantern War Journal, Volume 1, Contagion, written by Philip K. Johnson. This book collects the first, I kid you not, the first 6 issues of Green Lantern War Journal, which is like kind of like almost the first half of this book. along because it's basically a short-lived book, along with the backup feature from Green Lantern Volume 7. Yes. So, in case you're curious though, with Green Lantern Volume 7. Like, is it basically where, like, after the first 3 issues, do they stop doing backup feature? No. Excuse me. Because, of course, they replaced the feature with Sinister Sons. Yep, that's what they decided to do. Yeah, this is done by Tomasi. It's called Wayward Son. Yes, they decided to continue this as a feature. You're probably thinking, for how long? Well, this feature did lead into a Sinister Son miniseries. Yeah, these reissues led into the Sin Sun miniseries. Which I don't know. Let me check and see about this. I would think by now they would have collected this in trade paperback. Like, is it a payback of this? Not currently. Yeah, kind of weird. The fact that there is no trade paperback for this one. Yeah, I'm not sure why that DC is not collected, but they have it. So, Mentos basically is the artist for everything in here. So we first start with War Journal, the backup feature from Green Lantern, where John says it was awesome mom. And there's more stuff. By the way, there's also stuff here with Guy Gardner, who's got a beard. It looks more like it's like Guy from the future. He's bloodied. And this is like Rise of Earth Queen. This is the backup feature from Green Lantern, which not surprised is collected in here because it's DC Comics. Of course they would. And the whole thing is about this Revenant Queen. And this does lead into the main ongoing book for Green Lantern. It does. Excuse me. Oh, by the way, like, after, by the way, the Sin Sons feature, that lasts from issues 4 through 7. Then we have a Kyle Rayner one. Like, unlike Action, are they going to basically, you know, excuse me, do they plan to split into trade paperbacks? In the case of Green Lantern, well, the main book, well, I'm sure the Sin Sons, but in the case, I did check basically for the Kyrena one, I'll discuss in our video. Yeah, discuss that. So, mostly put is just, so, we do this new core here, related to John Stewart. It says the John story takes place after John Stewart Emerald Knight, which for some reason this one shot is not in a trade paperback. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm not sure why. It's just that they, for some reason, decided to do that. Excuse me. If you're curious about the Revenant Queen, is she like an original character here? No, she made a debut over in Action Comics. Mostly put basically as also reference here to one of the old gods, Argrin. Yes, who is a Philip K. Johnson character. It's like Philip K. Johnson, when you read this book, it's like he's continuing elements what he introduced in his War saga. And there's a lot of stuff here, him beating up basically some guy, and there's also a subplot here with his mom. Also, for some reason, they feature Kyle Rayner from different universe, not the main Kyle Rayner per se. And then we pay a visit to Steelworks. Yep, Steelworks. Where Steel is here, and he pretty much is like a supporting character in this book. You're like, really? Yes, really. And apparently also, this book introduced the fact that John Stewart had a sister who apparently died prior to becoming a Lantern. Oh, there's also Mrs. Stewart here. This is Shirley Stewart. She's John's mom. Excuse me. Who's basically a supporting character in this title. She practically appeared in this entire book. I gotta say, good idea. Now, the Steelworks Company, on the other hand, well, original is Iron Works, but this is sort of a continuation will happen from, you could say this is a continuation of the Steelworks title. Kind of. A little bit, because basically they're kind of supporting characters in this book. They also deal with the Revenant Queen. I think it's a bear. We also deal with these other constructs here. Yeah. Steel comes on board to help out John. Then we're into Kyle Rayner in this book, who is not Kyle Rayner. Excuse me. Yeah, where he's from a different universe. So apparently, that's how he's different from his John. He's also infected with this disease. More like zombie stuff, per se. It's supernatural, which is different. Do I think that Philip K. Johnson is trying to capture the magic of the World War saga? No, he is not attempting that here. You probably think he probably is, but no. Aside from revisiting elements of that run, he's not going back to World War with this book. There's no World War here. I do like the fact Steelworks is featured heavily in this book, because they don't have a book right now, so I'm featured in this. Oh, in case you're curious though with this book, was this book an ongoing series or a limited series? It was an ongoing. That ended after only 12 issues. You're like, really? Yep. Yeah. Also, his mom basically starts hallucinating, and he creates contact with his late sister, and basically it's like we see some stuff with this Revenant Queen stuff. Bunch of like, it's like contract versus contracts. And here's Ogron of the First World, who basically mentions from the Warlord saga. Yep. And that's kind of it per se for this book. It's an interesting start for this book per se. Little fun fact, the second ever ongoing for John Stewart. You're like, really? Yeah, really, his second ever ongoing title. Which is interesting given the fact he hasn't had that many. Yeah, you might be thinking, that's interesting. Yes, because he's been featured in like Dark Stars, Volume 6, 7 Green Lantern, 3 and 4 of Green Lantern Corps, but where he is like the main character. By the way, 4 is the current book published right now, where he's featured there. But as for solo books, his second ever solo book. His last book was published back in the 90s. And this was his first book in... When this book launched, his first one in 31 years since he had a book. My guess is DC probably didn't have faith to give another book after what happened with Mosaic. But they probably figured, oh, okay, let's give Frank Johnson a bone because people would love him. Let's give him this book. And the book ends at 12 issues. I'll discuss more of that at some other point. Those of you curious, though, is there any book currently he's working on right now? Oh, yes, he is. He is the current writer of Batman and Robin, who took over after Josh Williamson took over after he left the book. Yes, after Williamson left the book with issue 13, he's been the main writer of the book to issue 14. Surprisingly, his military payback, but at least he's featured now. Yes, he is. But yeah, that's pretty much a particular review. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications. Next up, Apothecary Diaries. Okay, thanks, bye.